In 1955, nearly 5 million American families still lived on working farms. Their kitchens smelled like wood smoke and lard. Their porches creaked under the weight of men who had not taken a vacation in a decade. And every single one of those farmhouses contained items that have now vanished so completely, most Americans under 40 would not even recognize them. Number 18 on this list was in every farmhouse bathroom, and doctors now say we should bring it back. Number 7 was so common that Sears sold 3 million of them in a single year. And number 2 disappeared not because it stopped working, but because an entire industry needed you to forget it ever existed. Before we start, subscribe, because this list is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about how Americans used to live. Here are 30 things every American farmhouse had in the 1950s that are now completely gone. Number 30, the party line telephone. That heavy black rotary phone on the hallway table was not a private line. It was shared with up to 8 neighboring farms. Pick up the receiver, and you might hear Mabel Patterson 3 miles down the road discussing her husband's gout with her sister in Topeka. Every household had a distinctive ring. 2 short rings and a long meant it was for you. 1 long and 2 short meant the Hendersons. But everyone listened anyway. Farm wives learned more local news from a quiet lift of the receiver than from any newspaper. By 1950, over 75% of rural telephone subscribers were on party lines. The phone itself cost about $4 a month, and the understanding was simple. Keep your calls short, do not gossip about what you overheard, and never tie up the line during an emergency. Children were taught to announce themselves before speaking. Teenagers were forbidden from calling friends after 8. The party line was not just communication. It was community surveillance, an emergency broadcast system, and entertainment rolled into one. When private lines finally reached rural America in the late 1960s, something was gained and something was quietly lost. Number 29, the root cellar. Dug into the earth beneath the house or carved into a hillside, the root cellar kept food cool in summer and above freezing in winter without a single watt of electricity. Shelves lined with mason jars of canned tomatoes, green beans, and peach preserves stretched from floor to ceiling. Bushels of potatoes sat in the dark corners, lasting from October through March. Onions hung in braided ropes from the rafters. The smell was unmistakable: cold earth, vinegar, and the faint sweetness of apples wrapped in newspaper. A well-stocked root cellar in 1952 held 400 jars of preserved food, enough to feed a family of 6 through an entire winter. The temperature stayed naturally between 32 degrees and 40 degrees, perfect for storage. Building one cost almost nothing beyond labor. When electric refrigerators and supermarkets arrived, root cellars became storage rooms for old furniture, then forgotten entirely. Most were filled in with dirt by the 1970s. Number 28, the lard press. Before Crisco convinced America that vegetable shortening was modern and clean, every farmhouse rendered its own lard after hog butchering. The lard press, a heavy cast iron contraption bolted to a table or stand, squeezed every last drop of fat from the cracklings. A family that butchered 2 hogs in November could press out 40 to 50 pounds of lard, enough for a full year of frying, biscuit making, and pie crusts. The rendered fat was poured into 5-gallon tins and stored in the cellar. That lard cost the family nothing but time. By 1955, Procter & Gamble was spending over $10 million a year advertising Crisco as the healthier alternative. Lard presses gathered dust in barns. Now food scientists are revisiting the data, and it turns out lard has less saturated fat than butter, and none of the trans fats that plagued hydrogenated shortening for decades. Your great-grandmother's pie crust was not just better tasting, it might have been better for you. Number 27, the summer kitchen. A separate small building or lean-to behind the main house where all the heavy cooking happened from May through September. Canning tomatoes, boiling corn, rendering fat. Any task that threw off serious heat was banished to the summer kitchen so the main house stayed cool. Most had a wood stove, a workbench, and little else. Some had a hand pump for water. The floor was often packed dirt or rough planks. By the 1950s, roughly a third of Midwestern farmhouses still used a summer kitchen during harvest season. A woman might spend 14 hours in there during August, putting up 60 quarts of tomatoes in a single day. When central air conditioning reached rural America in the late 1960s, summer kitchens became tool sheds and then collapsed entirely. The foundations are still visible on old homesteads if you know where to look. Number 26, the cream separator. Every dairy farmhouse had one. This cast iron and stainless steel machine spun fresh milk at high speed, separating cream from skim through centrifugal force. The cream went into butter churns or was sold to the local creamery for cash. A Delaval separator cost about $75 in 1952 and paid for itself in a season. Farm wives ran the morning milk through before breakfast, the rhythmic hum of the separator blending with the sounds of the kitchen. Children fought over who got to drink the warm skim milk that poured from the lower spout. The cream check from the creamery, arriving every 2 weeks, was often the only steady cash income a small farm had. When bulk tank regulations and pasteurization laws changed the dairy industry in the 1960s, small farmers could not afford the upgrades. The separators went to auctions, the creameries closed, and farm families lost the one thing that kept the lights on between harvests. Number 25, the wood box. A large wooden bin built into the wall beside the kitchen stove or standing freestanding near the back door kept a ready supply of split firewood within arm's reach. Filling the wood box was a daily chore assigned to the oldest boy. 2 armloads of split oak or hickory in the morning, 2 more before supper. A properly stocked wood box held enough fuel for a full day of cooking and heating water. The wood had to be seasoned dry, split to the right size, and stacked bark side up so it would catch fast. The smell of oak and ash permeated every farmhouse kitchen. When propane and natural gas lines reached rural communities in the late 1950s, the wood box became a magazine rack, then vanished altogether. But for decades, that box was the engine of the household. If the wood box was empty, nothing got cooked. Number 24, the cistern. In areas without reliable well water, farmhouses collected rainwater from the roof into an underground cistern. A hand pump in the kitchen drew water up for cooking and washing. A good cistern held 2,000 to 5,000 gallons, enough to last a dry spell if the family was careful. The water was soft, perfect for washing hair and doing laundry, and many farm women preferred it to hard well water. A charcoal filter at the inlet kept out debris. Children were warned never to lift the cistern cover. Every spring, someone had to climb down and scrub the walls with a brush and lye soap. When rural water systems and deep wells with electric pumps became standard in the 1960s, cisterns were sealed, filled with gravel, or simply forgotten. But during those years, the cistern was the reason a farmhouse could exist where it did. Number 23, the PIE safe. A tall wooden cabinet with punched tin panels in the doors, the pie safe kept baked goods, ventilated and protected from flies. Those decorative tin patterns were not decoration, they were functional. The tiny holes allowed air circulation while the metal kept insects out. A farmhouse pie safe in 1952 might hold 3 or 4 pies cooling after a Saturday bake, along with bread loaves and leftover biscuits. The punched tin designs, often stars, eagles, or geometric patterns, were made by local tinsmiths who considered them a point of pride. A good pie safe cost between $8 and $15, and families kept them for generations. When refrigeration and plastic wrap made the pie safe unnecessary, they ended up in antique shops. Today, a genuine 1950s pie safe sells for $800 to $2,000. Your grandmother probably gave hers away. Number 22, the wringer washing machine. Before automatic washers, the wringer machine was the farm wife's Monday companion. Clothes were agitated in a tub of hot, soapy water, then fed by hand through 2 rubber rollers that squeezed out the water. The rollers were dangerous. Every farm community had a story about someone whose fingers or hand got caught in the wringer. Children were kept well back on wash day. A Maytag wringer washer cost about $170 in 1955, a significant investment. The whole operation took most of a day. Whites first, in the hottest water, then darks, then work clothes. The same water was reused 3 or 4 times before it was dumped in the yard. A farm wife doing laundry for a family of 7 went through the wringer process for every single item. When automatic washers became affordable in the early 1960s, wringer machines were dragged to the barn with something close to celebration. Number 21, the kerosene lamp shelf. Even after rural electrification reached most of America, farmhouses kept a dedicated shelf near the back door, stocked with kerosene lamps, trimmed wicks, and a can of fuel. Power outages were frequent in rural areas. Ice storms, wind, or a fallen tree on the line could leave the power out for days. Every family member knew how to trim a wick, fill a lamp without spilling, and adjust the flame for light without smoke. The shelf usually held 3 or 4 lamps, each assigned to a different room. The smell of kerosene was as familiar as coffee in a farmhouse in the 1950s. That shelf stayed stocked well into the 1970s in many homes, long after electricity was reliable, because farm people had learned that depending on one system for anything was foolish. Number 20, the button jar. Every farmhouse had one. A mason jar or old coffee tin filled with hundreds of buttons cut from worn-out clothes before the fabric was torn into rags. Nothing was thrown away whole. When a shirt lost a button, the jar was dumped onto the kitchen table and children sorted through it, matching size, color, and shape. Some buttons dated back decades. Bone and shell buttons from great-grandmother's dresses, sitting alongside Bakelite buttons from coats of the 1940s. A single button cost a penny or 2 at the general store, but buying new ones was considered wasteful when the jar was right there. Children played sorting games with them on rainy afternoons. The button jar was not sentimentality. It was economics, pure and simple. When cheap imported clothing made mending pointless in the 1970s, the button jars were dumped into boxes at estate sales, sold for $0.25. Number 19, the pump organ. Sitting in the front parlor, the pump organ provided music for hymn singing, holiday gatherings, and Sunday evenings when the family had nowhere to go and nothing to do but be together. A farm wife pumped the foot pedals to force air through the reeds while playing from a worn hymnal. By 1950, an estimated 2 million pump organs sat in American homes, most of them in rural areas where pianos were too expensive and too heavy to haul down dirt roads. A used pump organ could be had for $25 to $50. The sound was thin and reedy, nothing like a piano, but it filled a parlor with enough melody to carry a family through Amazing Grace on a winter night. When television arrived, the organ fell silent. When the family moved to town, The organ stayed behind, too heavy and too worthless to move. Number 18, the chamber pot. Under the bed in every farmhouse bedroom sat a ceramic pot with a lid because the outhouse was 50 yards away in the dark and it was 15 below zero in January. Nobody talked about it, but everybody used it. Emptying the chamber pot each morning was a chore, assigned early and never discussed in polite company. A good ceramic pot from Sears cost about $1.50. Some were plain white. Some had floral patterns, as if decoration could disguise the purpose. When indoor plumbing finally reached most American farmhouses in the late 1950s and early 1960s, chamber pots were the first thing thrown out. But here is what doctors now acknowledge. Getting up multiple times in the night to walk to a cold outhouse contributed to falls, hypothermia, and worse among elderly farm residents. The chamber pot was a genuine health intervention that nobody wanted to admit they needed. Number 17, the milk can porch, a wooden platform or small covered shelf by the road where full milk cans were set out each morning for the dairy truck to collect. The driver picked up full cans and left empty ones. No conversation needed. The milk check arrived by mail every 2 weeks. That platform was the farm's loading dock, its connection to the cash economy. A 10-gallon milk can weighed about 90 pounds when full, and a farm with 6 cows might set out 2 or 3 every morning. Children helped carry them, building the kind of strength that did not come from gymnasiums. When bulk tanks and refrigerated trucks replaced the can system in the 1960s, the milk platforms rotted and collapsed. The personal relationship between farmer and milk hauler, a man who knew every family on his route by name, vanished with them. Number 16, the smokehouse. A small windowless building, usually built of stone or brick, where pork was cured with salt and smoked over hickory or applewood for days. After the November hog butchering, hams, bacon slabs, and sausage links hung from hooks in the smokehouse ceiling, slowly absorbing the preserving smoke. A properly smoked ham could last a full year without refrigeration. The smokehouse itself was never cleaned, not entirely. The layers of creosote and smoke residue on the walls and ceiling were part of the preservation process, building up over decades. The smell was extraordinary, rich, woody, and ancient. By the mid-1950s, commercial meat packing made home smoking seem old-fashioned. Supermarket bacon cost less than the wood to smoke your own. Smokehouses became storage sheds, then curiosities, then piles of old stone in the weeds behind the barn. Number 15, the almanac nail. A single nail driven into the wall beside the back door held the current year's farmer's almanac. Every farmhouse had one. The almanac told you when to plant, when to harvest, when the frost would come, and what the weather would do next week. It cost 35 cents and was consulted more often than the Bible in some households. Farmers marked pages with pencil, circled moon phases, and argued with neighbors about its accuracy. The nail stayed in the same spot for years, the wall around it darkened with the oils from 1,000 thumbings. When weather forecasts became available on television and radio, the almanac lost its authority. But that nail stayed in the wall long after the last almanac was hung on it, a small monument to a time when farming depended on a 35-cent book and the sky. Number 14, the rag rug loom. Farm women wove rugs from strips of worn-out clothing on simple wooden frame looms. Nothing was wasted. A child's outgrown dress became a strip in a kitchen rug. A father's threadbare work shirt joined the pattern on the bedroom floor. The colors told a family history if you knew how to read them. A rag rug could take weeks to weave, worked on in the evenings after supper. The finished product was thick, durable, and warm underfoot on cold plank floors. By 1955, carpet remnants from department stores cost less than the time it took to weave a rag rug, and the looms were put away. The rugs themselves lasted decades, fading and softening until they became almost part of the floor itself. Number 13, the hand crank ice cream freezer. A wooden bucket packed with ice and rock salt, with a metal canister inside and a hand crank on top. Making ice cream was a family event. Someone had to turn that crank for 30 to 45 minutes while the custard inside slowly froze. The job was usually rotated among children with the promise that the cranker got to lick the dasher. A White Mountain freezer cost $6 in 1952. The ice came from the ice house or was bought in blocks from the iceman for a dime. The rock salt cost a nickel, and the result was ice cream so dense and rich that nothing from a store has ever matched it. 4th of July without the hand crank freezer was unthinkable. When electric freezers and store-bought ice cream became standard, the wooden bucket went to the back of the pantry. But anyone who turned that crank as a child will tell you the same thing. It was worth every minute. Number 12, the canning kettle. A massive enamel pot, sometimes holding 21 quarts, that dominated the kitchen stove every August and September. Farm women put up everything: tomatoes, green beans, corn, peaches, pickles, apple butter. The kitchen became a factory. Steam rolled across the ceiling. Jars clinked as they were lifted from boiling water with special tongs. The satisfying pop of each lid sealing meant another quart of food secured for winter. A family might put up 500 to 800 jars in a single season. The pressure canner, essential for low-acid vegetables and meat, hissed and rocked on the burner, its gauge watched as carefully as a sleeping baby. The Ball Blue Book, the Bible of home canning, sat on every kitchen shelf, its pages spotted and wrinkled from years of use. When frozen food and supermarkets made canning seem unnecessary in the 1970s, the kettles went to garage sales. Now canning has come back as a hobby, but in the 1950s it was not a hobby, it was survival. Number 11. The wash line and prop pole. 2 wooden posts set in the yard with wire strung between them and a long forked pole to prop the line up when it sagged under wet laundry. Monday was wash day, and the line told the neighborhood everything. Whether you were a good housekeeper, how many children you had, and whether your husband had a job that dirtied his clothes. Sheets went up first, then shirts, then undergarments hidden behind the sheets where the neighbors could not see. A full line of laundry in the wind smelled like sunshine and soap. In winter, clothes froze stiff on the line and were brought in to thaw by the stove. An electric dryer cost $230 in 1957, more than a month's income for many farm families. The wash line cost nothing and worked every day the rain held off. When dryers became affordable in the 1960s, the posts came down. Whole neighborhoods lost the Monday rhythm of flapping sheets and the sweet scent of sun-dried cotton. Number 10. The potato bin. A slatted wooden bin in the cellar or back porch holding 200 to 300 pounds of potatoes dug from the garden in September. Potatoes were the foundation of the farm diet. Fried for breakfast, boiled for dinner, mashed for supper, a family of 6 could go through 5 pounds a day. The bin was dark and ventilated, keeping the spuds from sprouting or going green. Every few weeks, someone sorted through the bin, pulling out any that had gone soft or started to rot before they could spoil the rest. Children hated this job. The smell of a rotting potato is something you never forget. When supermarkets offered 5-pound bags year-round for 39 cents, the potato bin became unnecessary. Growing, digging, and storing 300 pounds of potatoes was a tremendous amount of work that a trip to the Piggly Wiggly could replace in 10 minutes. Number 9. The slop bucket. A dented metal pail kept beside the kitchen door collected every scrap of food waste, potato peels, coffee grounds, stale bread, meat trimmings, sour milk. Twice a day, someone carried it to the hog pen and dumped it in the trough. Nothing edible left the farm. The cycle was closed. Scraps became pork. Pork became meals. Meals produced scraps. The slop bucket smelled terrible by afternoon in July, attracting flies that the screen door was supposed to keep out, but never quite did. Children who were assigned slop bucket duty carried it at arm's length, trying not to splash. When farms stopped keeping hogs in the 1960s and the 1970s, the slop bucket disappeared. Food waste went into the trash can, then into the landfill. America now throws away roughly 80 million tons of food a year. The slop bucket was ugly and it stank, but it solved a problem we have still not figured out. Number 8. The hand pump well. A cast iron pump mounted over the well, usually standing in the yard between the house and the barn. Pumping water required real effort. 20 strokes to fill a bucket, and a household needed 15 to 20 buckets a day for cooking, cleaning, laundry, and livestock. In winter, someone poured hot water over the pump head every morning to thaw the mechanism. The pump handle was worn smooth and shiny from decades of use. Children pumped water before school, after school, and on demand whenever their mother called from the kitchen. A new hand pump cost about $12 in 1952. When electric well pumps became standard, the old hand pumps were left standing in the yard. Some families kept them as backup, and some of those families were proven right when the power went out. Number 7. The Sears catalog. It sat on every farmhouse table, counter, and outhouse seat in America. The 1955 Sears catalog ran over 1,500 pages and weighed nearly 5 pounds. It was department store, wish book, and reading material all in one. Farm families ordered everything from work boots to wedding rings, cream separators to curtains. The catalog arrived twice a year, and the old one found its second career in the outhouse, its soft pages serving a practical purpose that nobody needed explained. Children circled Christmas wishes in pencil, folding corners of pages so worn they eventually fell out. A rural family might spend $200 to $500 a year through the Sears catalog. It was their connection to a consumer world they could not drive to in an afternoon. When Sears stopped publishing the catalog in 1993, it ended an era that had already been fading for decades. But in the 1950s, that catalog was more important than the newspaper. Number 6. The storm cellar. Separate from the root cellar, the storm cellar was dug specifically for tornado protection. A heavy wooden or steel door, set at an angle against the ground, opened to reveal concrete steps descending into a reinforced underground room. When the sky turned green and the wind stopped, the whole family filed down those steps, carrying lanterns, water, and blankets. Farm families in Tornado Alley did this drill so often it became routine. The cellar usually held a bench, a jug of water, candles, and a battery radio. Some families stored canned goods there as a hedge against disaster. The door was heavy enough that a child could not open it alone, a safety measure as much as a structural one. When modern homes began including interior safe rooms and basement shelters, the freestanding storm cellar fell out of use. But anyone who huddled underground while a tornado passed overhead remembers the sound. That roar, and the silence that followed. Number 5. The icebox. Before electric refrigerators were common in rural homes, the icebox kept food cold with actual blocks of ice. A wooden cabinet, insulated with cork or sawdust, held a block of ice in the top compartment, and the cold air settled down over the food stored below. The iceman came twice a week in summer, hauling 25 or 50-pound blocks with iron tongs from a horse-drawn or motorized wagon. Children followed the ice wagon, picking up chips of ice to suck on in the heat. A block cost 10 to 20 cents, and the drip pan underneath had to be emptied daily or the kitchen floor flooded. The ice box kept food cool, not cold. Milk lasted 2 days, meat 1 day. Planning meals around what would spoil first was a daily calculation. When electric refrigerators dropped below $200 in the mid-1950s, ice boxes were dragged to the porch and used for storage. The iceman stopped coming. A job, a routine, and a relationship disappeared in a single generation. Number 4. The outhouse. A small wooden structure set 50 to 100 feet from the house, with a bench seat over a pit. In 1950, roughly 30% of American farm homes still had no indoor plumbing. The Sears catalog offered prefabricated outhouses for about $30, though most were built from scrap lumber. A crescent moon or star was cut into the door for ventilation and a sliver of light. Lime was tossed down the hole regularly to control odor. In summer, the outhouse was hot and filled with flies. In winter, it was an act of sheer determination. When indoor bathrooms finally reached rural homes through a combination of electric water pumps and septic systems, the outhouse was the first structure torn down. Some families burned theirs in celebration. The outdoor privy was the most tangible symbol of rural hardship, and its disappearance marked the true arrival of modern life on the American farm. Number 3. The wood-burning cook stove. The center of every farmhouse kitchen, the cook stove did everything. It baked bread, fried eggs, heated water, warmed the room, and dried wet mittens draped over the warming shelf. A cast-iron cook stove from the early 1950s weighed 400 to 600 pounds and cost between $80 and $150. It burned 2 to 3 cords of wood per year. The farm wife who mastered her stove knew every hot spot on the cooking surface, which burner plate ran hottest, where to set a pot for a slow simmer, and exactly how to adjust the damper for an even oven temperature. There were no dials and no thermometers on cheaper models. She tested the oven by holding her hand inside and counting. 3 seconds meant hot enough for biscuits. 5 seconds meant right for a slow roast. This was knowledge passed from mother to daughter, impossible to learn from a book. When gas and electric ranges arrived, the cook stove was hauled out through a door that sometimes had to be widened to fit it. The kitchen got cooler, the cooking got easier, and something that nobody could quite name was gone. Number 2. The home remedy shelf. A wooden shelf in the kitchen or bathroom held a collection of remedies that no doctor prescribed and no pharmacy stocked. Camphor, turpentine, mustard plaster mix, castor oil, coal oil for croup, sulfur and molasses for a spring tonic, kerosene, soaked sugar cubes for sore throats, poultices made from bread, and milk for infected cuts. There was a bottle of Watkins liniment and a tin of bag balm that was meant for cows, but used on cracked human hands all winter. The farm was often 20 miles from the nearest doctor, and a house call cost $5, nearly a day's wages. So families treated everything at home first. Some of it worked. Bag balm genuinely heals cracked skin. Mustard plasters increase blood flow and relieve congestion. Some of it was useless, some of it was dangerous, but the shelf represented something real. Self-reliance born not from ideology but from geography. When antibiotics, health insurance, and paved roads made doctors accessible, the home remedy shelf was cleared out. The knowledge on that shelf, accumulated over generations, vanished in a decade. Pharmaceutical companies did not mind. Number 1. The front porch. Wide enough for a swing, 2 rocking chairs, and a row of family members sitting in the evening air after supper. The front porch was the farmhouse's living room from April to October. It was where news was shared, where neighbors were greeted, where a tired man sat and watched the sun go down over fields he had worked since dawn. Children played on the steps, while adults talked in low voices about rain, prices, and the health of the livestock. Courting happened on the porch. Deals were made on the porch. Bad news was delivered on the porch because somehow it was easier to hear hard things with open sky overhead. The wide front porch cost almost nothing to build, a few extra joists, some decking boards, and a roof extension. But it created a space between private and public life that no room inside the house could replicate. When air conditioning arrived in the 1960s, families moved indoors. The television replaced the conversation. The porch swing sat empty, and slowly builders stopped including front porches altogether, replacing them with attached garages that faced the street like closed fists. The farmhouse porch was not architecture. It was a way of living, and when it disappeared, a piece of American life went with it, something we have spent 60 years trying to replace with social media, community centers, and neighborhood apps, never quite succeeding. That is the list. 30 things that once defined American farm life, gone in a single generation. Some disappeared because something better came along. Some vanished because industries wanted them forgotten. And some were lost simply because we stopped paying attention. If your family had any of these, share which one you remember in the comments. And if this video made you think, share it with someone who grew up on a farm. They will have stories to tell. Subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you in the next one.